everyone. We've had a very interesting question about hating our job, which I'm sure many of us can resonate, or hating our circumstances, hating our body, hating our partner, hating our life. We could, whatever's going on for us, we can perhaps resonate with what this person is saying. Hi, Claire. What do you think I should do to stop suffering? I hate my job, and when I'm at home, every time I think about my job or going to work, I just feel very depressed and stressed out. I feel like I never want to work again. But on the other side, I need money to function in society. What's the solution? Should I change my job? And then in brackets, all the jobs I had in the past, I hated all of them. Or with some technique, should I learn to like it? Mm. Oh, it's such an interesting question, this. It gets us into such a rich territory of choice and responsibility and free will, suffering, all of it's in this. So what this is a question of resistance, isn't it? There's a circumstance, in this case a job, but it might be another person, it might be an event, it might be another life aspect, and there is intense resistance to it. Every time that thought of it comes into our mind, we suffer, we feel low and depressed, we might feel anxious, might feel trapped, and then we get to work, we do the work, we do the same thing, we feel intense resistance, resentment even against this job, and the suffering is immense in that, isn't it? Because we're living a daily torture of really the torture of being out of the flow of what we are, which is paradise, really, when we're just in that pure present flow, no sort of lurching mind that takes us out of it, no tension in the body, none of that toxic resentment flowing through. We're just in the flow of being, which is paradise really for the system. But instead of that, we're constantly jarred out of it. We're not present. We're resisting the present, and we're continually thinking of how this should be different. So what do we do with that? Well, so the listener suggests, two options. Should I change my job, or should I learn to like it? Well, what we can see from the behavior is that we're actually not changing the job, are we? And this is really a clue. This is a place of real freedom. When we see this, we can start to see that no matter what the resistance is, at the moment, given everything believed, it makes sense to stay. And that is like a portal to seeing this whole system in action. Because what we start to see is that instead of getting lost in the story of me and my suffering, and really me as a victim, me resenting the hands I've been played, me stuck, trapped, instead of that, what we start to see, we come back, a broader perspective shows us that the behavior, i.e. staying in the job, is optimum behavior always. It can't be anything else. Optimum behavior for what's believed. So right now, given all the understanding of what I am, of what the world is, of what money is, of what's required, what's needed, given all of that, it makes sense to stay. That's all we know, really. But that alone is a shift out of victim status into into the witnessing of a system choosing to stay. Do you see what I mean here? So we're no longer lost in the story of victimhood. We're not even in the space of a doer deciding to stay. We're in the space of a witnessing presence, seeing a learned system in action, and on the basis of everything that's been learned, all the conditioning, all the beliefs, all the meaning, all the association, all the fears, all the needs, on the basis of all of that, it at the moment makes sense to stay. And this is phenomenal, truly, because it's the shift from out of victim, not into doer, it's all on me, I have to do this, but into witnessing a learned system doing the only behavior that is available to it is enormous. Because that then, instead of this battle with the job, with the colleagues, with the circumstances, instead of that battle, we'll actually get curious about that entire reality that puts out that behavior. And that's huge then to see that, because then we start to see all of the reasons why it makes absolute sense to stay in the job. And there can start to be what I call no self accountability. So it's not that suddenly there's a ego identity claiming, I'm doing all this, but it's just there's an ownership, there's an accountability within this system for the only choices that make sense for it. And then we can really start to keep going back and back and back and back into this conversation, really. So we come out of that battle and we start to see, well, what is real? What is this believed identity? What is this idea of me? What is this idea of what's required, of what many is, of what's possible, what's not possible? All of that is a construct of conditioned mind. And we can start to get really curious about that entire setup. And so then the choices aren't anymore, should I find another job, or should I just try and get rid of this suffering? Because we've seen already that we're not able at the moment to find another job. It actually doesn't make sense for us to find another job right now. If it did, we would be. And to try to get rid of the suffering, sure, all sorts of ways of doing that, but all of it lock us into a vicious circle of momentary, temporary relief, because nothing's changed, has it? We're still in the same job. We've still got the same understanding of what we are, of what's true, that is keeping that behavior happening. And so finding a way to relieve the suffering is addiction, basically. It's nothing's changed. And so I'm just going to try and numb the mind, numb the suffering, numb the emotions. And when that wears off, then I'm going to try it again. So instead of that, why not? Instead of doing that, this whole conversation is sending us right to the very origin of what we are, of what's true. And then from there, from that space, things fall away that aren't true. And the basis on which beliefs and thoughts are judged to be true shifts. And it might only be like a tiny fraction, like almost imperceptible. But yeah, it's a whole different reality that appears. Like an ocean liner, a fraction of a degree difference in their steering is a whole other island it's heading towards. Yeah. So it's this conversation. That's where we start everything. What's true? What am I? What is this self that is believes it's stuck, that believes it's limited, that believes it's separate from the job? The job's not separate. It's all created from the same perceptual mind. Yeah. Yeah. So hang out here. It's yeah, it's the only place where anything changes. Mm. Yeah. Big love. Thank you for that question. So much love to you. Bye.